anything from the phase master that we use on regular jobs because that routes to incorrect GLs? Is that the issue, or?
No, you could, but normally your real phases are actually production phases for jobs and stuff. Whereas some of these overhead things, it'd be more for tracking vacation time and holiday time and non-productive time and all those things, which normally people have kind of different phases to describe overhead work versus the real phase structure.
Well, and the overhead, so holiday, vacation, whatever, or basically the dummy jobs, you'd basically have those phase codes feed to whether it be the indirect labor GL accounts.
Right, or the burden.
But
we can still do that with our main phase codes. What my question was is, so for these jobs, we're talking overhead phases for those miscellaneous type. What I'm talking about is a job that's not awarded yet. We're going in as an estimate. We have some engineering time. We have to design the job up for a rough budget, stuff like that. So it's not a real job. We're going in to get it, as a real job, but we have to make those charges go somewhere. I want to charge to regular engineering phase codes under a dummy job at that point.
So that's where we could use that copy template thing that we talked about and use sub jobs to maybe help track that. And we haven't hammered that out a lot.
That's what we're talking about.
Would you want those to go to indirect and then when they go to the job go to direct, or do you want those to go to direct, but then you're really going direct to direct? Because if you never get that job, do you want that thing to be sitting in some sort of indirect cost account if you're never awarded to that?
Right,
so I imagine we would map all those to indirects. And then at some point in time, we'd be able to run a job cost report on that sub job and say, okay, what were the costs? And then reallocate those from the dummy job to the real job once we get the real job set up. And it would be a negative to the indirects, a positive to the directs.
Now, can we do that with our master phase? Say I have an engineering labor phase code, right, that I use on real jobs, and then I want to make a dummy job, basically that's for potential jobs.
Using the same phase.
Use that same phase code that goes to an indirect GL, right?
That'd be the easiest way to map it over, wouldn't it?
That's exactly what I'm talking about.
Yeah, it'd be the easiest way to reallocate your costs.
And so
it's just have to figure out what job needs to be changed, not what phases.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yep.
Want the darn phases, not to have any methodology for going on. Just what's the new job number?
Gotcha.
So what Brian was suggesting is having an estimating job and then setting up a new phase for every opportunity. But it sounds to me like this would be estimating sub job for every opportunity with the phase code staying consistent.
I'm thinking that's easier. Does that make sense?
That's what we're trying to figure out.
That makes more sense.
That makes a lot of sense to me. It's choose the
makes
sub
much
job
more
with the
sense.
same phase structure and then have that sub job be reallocated.
So we create as many jobs as we need.
And if you take all your estimating jobs and have like some kind of unique structure, so you could run them all together through a filter or something, that makes more sense.
Yeah, because what if we had more than, and we always talk about engineering and estimating, but what if we have a potential opportunity where we have a ton of other whatever, right, going into it, and we want those phased to know that those become a real job. We want them still separated for that one job. So I think you're right. Starting up,
maintain those cost buckets.
Yes.
So they're here, and then you bring them over here.
Yeah, instead of one lump sum bucket under an engineering job, and then what would we spin up an estimating job, and then you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I think sub jobs is where we need to be.
I think you're right.
With the same phases.
And we name those sub jobs something.
Well, the
unique.
sub job would be the opportunity.
That's what I mean, but we would name the job number, have a nomenclature for potential opportunity jobs, right?
Yeah, you could call it 2018 estimated jobs. And then each sub job would be an opportunity in 2018. Then 2019, you can start a new one. I mean, you can kind of do whatever you want, you know.
I see what you're saying as far as a header type job, call it estimating, and then use our dot with the 2 digits for all the sub jobs after that are potential opportunities.
Sure, something, or we'll kind of strategically think what would be make the most sense to do something like that or something. But
that makes sense. So actually, at that point, would you have one contract and then a ton of jobs for those sub jobs?
Yeah, because I'd never be billing them Does that make
So it
sense?
doesn't matter.
I just
So with
gotta
the
set up a dummy
estimating,
contract for it, and then I gotta have a lot of jobs hooked into that, because I'm never gonna get revenue on those
Yeah.
things.
So
Until I
would
get
you
my
roll,
real contract with my schedule.
Okay.
would you roll the estimating and engineering all into that opportunity instead of having engineering jobs and estimating jobs?
That's what we need to figure out, yeah.
Or would they just be separate phases under the opportunity, and so then Randy could strip out his phases, and then Samara would strip out her phases, so they were only managing their
Well, if it was
area.
one job, so if it was one opportunity, right, I would imagine that we would have a job for that opportunity, and then under there, any of the estimating phase codes and engineering phase codes under there, or whatever, right?
Right,
All those
so they
are-
would just report on what their area,
Yeah, the main thing
department would
is
be-
that we have a job number in our sequence that we do here, and we have that dot with 2 digits after it, right? And then we can have one contract, right, one contract, but like 100 jobs attached to that contract, right? And all of them are separate potential opportunities.
sure.
And so under there, we would do, the dots 01, 02, 03, 04, and under each one of those would be estimated cost, engineering cost.
Right, and then you could also track, like, how many opportunities did you have that year, and then how many did you get
You could.
transferred to live awarded projects?
By looking at that nomenclature, you could. You could just count them up. Yeah, I think I like that organization a little bit.
Yeah, you extract the data somehow, I
Yeah, just do
don't know.
it. And so for those, we could use the master phases for those opportunities, but we're going to have actual overhead jobs, which are a separate thing, not opportunity type things.
Yep.
Sort of dummy jobs there. And then for those, we'd probably be better to create some overhead phases on those that are specific to that. Because it's not a transfer account, it's literally an overhead.
That's correct. You go to each division, to the service division, and the fab, all the different divisions, and say, hey, if we were going to report on, I call it non-productive time, when people aren't getting a real job and we're billing our customer and making money off of them, what are all the different reasons that we would want to track on a report of what they were doing when they weren't working on a real job? Oh, they're on vacation, they're on holiday, they're on this, they're doing, and each one might have its own unique little thing, The service department might have a few little things. Oh, he's ordering parts, or he's working in, I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
But each one might have its own idiosyncrasy, and that's kind of a cost area or a phase
Gotcha.
in that overhead type approach to stuff.
Yeah, so the phases would be set up by kind of department, I guess, at that point.
Yeah, it would make sense. And some would overlap, like
Gotcha.
vacation and holiday and stuff. But other ones might be specific to what goes on over there.
Okay.
When we're building our non-productive phase list, does that make sense?
That does.
And because it just would describe the reason why. When they pick that job, then they'd say, and what were you doing? I was on holiday, I was on vacation, I was ordering parts, I was on light duty, I was doing this, I was doing that. Yeah. So we would need to know, hey, what would be the reason somebody was being overhead in a field area?
Okay.